Well, good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us on Oversight Live tonight. We're back on the air. We've figured out our technical problems, I hope. It's always a challenge to go live to the world and not know whether you're going to have your technical ducks in a row. But we're going to give it another shot tonight. So hopefully, thanks for joining us tonight. Oversight Live. Hey, we got no road to Juneau, but this can be your road to Juneau. Let's have a conversation about some things that are going on in Juneau right now that I think people need to be aware of. I think we're going to focus on one topic tonight, and that topic is ethics. Should get your blood boiling here because we want our legislators and our public servants to be ethical people. So, accusations of unethical behavior should be taken seriously, and we should be looking at the law and seeing what the law says instead of making people guilty by association in the public, right? In the public eye, just publicly humiliate them. All right, so what are we talking about here? I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, and you'll be able to see what I'm referring to. Okay. There we go. So what we have going on right now is back at the end of last year, some complaints were filed. Numerous complaints were filed, and I'll touch on that here in a minute. But numerous complaints were filed that Homer Representative Sarah Vance used her office for unethical reasons. Okay. So this article by Eric Stone, Alaska Public Media, which I'll just call it a hit piece right now, but let's get into it and you can make a decision. The Alaska State House's Ethics Committee launched an investigation into whether Homer Republican Representative Sarah Vance illegally used state resources when she successfully pushed the local newspaper to remove and revise a story. Vance objected to the Homer News article about a vigil she helped organize after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The article described Kirk's views as racist and controversial and said Kirk promoted conspiracy theories. Vance accused the paper of hate baiting and raised concerns about the impact of what she called the newspaper's partisan spin on the paper's financial viability. She listed her objections in a letter on state letterhead that she posted to her official Facebook page. Now, the newspaper owner's Alabama-based Carpenter Media Group, no relation to this Carpenter, then removed, revised, and reposted the story without the reporter's byline. And I think this is where one of the cruxes of the problem is that you've got some reporters that are circling the wagons here. The owner of the paper, Carpenter Media Group, told the Columbia Journalism Review that the article did not meet its standards. So in essence, the Carpenter Media Group agreed with Representative Vance. Now, there's been a legislative complaint that Sarah Vance has used her public resources, meaning she used her letterhead, for non-legislative or partisan political purposes right here. So state law prohibits legislators from using public resources for non-legislative or partisan political purposes. So now the House subcommittee the House subcommittee on the Select Committee on Legislative Ethics has the complaint, numerous complaints, because there's a bunch of them. And in the past, if there were coordinated complaints being filed, meaning multiple people were filing the same complaint and working together, like as in a group, they'd likely have that stuff thrown out because the ethics process was never meant to be weaponized against politicians, against elected leaders by people who don't agree with their positions, right? So we've got a situation here where the news media owner at least somewhat agreed with Representative Vance's position in the letter that she sent on official letterhead. The complaints then are what the ethics committee has to take up. So let's just dive into this for a second and talk about what the statutes say. All right. So here is let me see if I can get it right here. Statutes. Here are the statutes. All right. So we start with legislative findings and purpose on standards of conduct for our legislators. The legislature finds that high moral and ethical standards among public servants in the legislative branch of government are essential to assure the trust, respect, and confidence of the people of the state. Okay? This statute, this is the law, is going to line out what legislators are held to account for by the legislative ethics committee. It isn't enough that people can just disagree with what a legislator says or does. It actually has to violate the law. Otherwise, the ethics committee would be weaponized for political purposes when anybody disagrees with a legislator, okay? Fair and open government requires that legislators and legislative employees conduct the public's business in a manner that preserves the integrity of the legislative process and avoids conflicts of interest, or even appearances of conflicts of interest. Okay, so what are we actually talking about here? Let's scroll down. And if you go to the akleg.gov website and you just type in this statute, AS 24.60.010, you'll come up with this. Just in the search heading on the website, just type it in and it'll come up to it. So let's scroll down. Standards of conduct. 030, prohibited conduct and conflicts of interest. A legislator or legislative employee may not. And instead of reading all this, I'm just going to skip to the pertinent piece that is Representative Vance is being accused of. Okay, legislator may not use public funds, facilities, equipment, services, or other government asset or resource. So in this case, the claim is that because she used the letterhead on a letter, that letterhead constitutes public funds or public equipment. Okay, so legislator may not use public funds for a non-legislative purpose or for involvement in or support of opposition to partisan political activity. So both of those are claims that, and let's define partisan, right? This is political party business, the party political activity. Okay, so during kind of the time you see this is when you have elections and there are party business going on, campaigns going on. Okay, so there's nothing here that has anything to do with campaigning or political parties. But the statute says use of public funds for non-legislative purposes, right? This is a legislator may not use public funds for non-legislative purposes. And then the paragraph is a semicolon, ends on a semicolon that says this paragraph does not prohibit, and it lists some exceptions. What is the first exception to when a legislator may use public funds, i.e. a letterhead, for a non-legislative purpose? Limited use of state property and resources for personal purposes if the use does not interfere with the performance of public duties and either the cost or value related to the use is nominal or the legislator or legislative employee reimburses the state for the cost of the use. So this is what the ethics committee should be looking at. If the complaint that is being filed, and again, all I've got to go on is what's written in the newspaper, that this is what the complaint is, because the actual complaints, and I've already checked on this, the actual complaints are secret. The legislative ethics committee is not going to release those complaints until they've, finalized their investigation. So all we have to go on is what's written in the paper that's been leaked by somebody that has spoken to the reporter and says, hey, this is she's being accused of. Okay. So right here on the face of it, if she's using her letterhead for non-legislative purposes, there is an exception built right in that says you can do that for personal purposes if it doesn't interfere with your official duties and the cost is nominal, or you reimburse the state. Okay, so we're really talking about one letter, one 8.5 sheet of piece of paper with a letterhead at the top that was probably sent by email, I would guess. But even if it was printed out, you're talking about a nominal cost, like it is pennies, right? Okay. So let's take another step further here and look at who is actually on the legislative committee, ethics committee. Okay. I got to find my document here. It's one of these. Okay, so if you pull up akleg.gov and you go to committees, you go to joint committees, because this is both the House and the Senate, and then you can find the Select Committee on Legislative Ethics. Okay, here's your members. So in the Senate, you've got the Senate President, Gary Stevens, Senator Rob Yunt, Senator Mike Cronk, Senator Matt Clayman all serve on the Legislative Committee. The first two are members. The second two are alternates. In the House, Representative Galvin. In the majority is a member. Representative Kevin McCabe is a member from the minority. And that goes with the Senate as well. Senator Yunt is a minority member. And then the alternates are Representative Hannan and Representative Bynum from in the House. And then you have public members. So Deborah Fancher is the chair. Joyce Anderson is on the committee. H. Connor Thomas is on the committee. Dennis Skip Cook is on the committee. Chase Berenson is the alternate. And these are public members appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken, and confirmed by the legislature. All right. These names of these public committee is going to be important here in just a minute. So Fancher, Anderson, Thomas, Skip Cook. Okay, so here's where coming to do some research is important, okay? Because if you come to the statutes, and we just looked at the statute, I'm gonna pull back to the article that we just read, okay? So here's the accusation that's being leveled. State law prohibits legislators from using resources for non-legislative or partisan political purposes. Okay, that's the claim that supposedly the people who have filed complaint are saying that that Representative Vance did, that she's done wrong on. This is what the author of the article, again, a newsman who might be circling the wagons for other reporters that quit after she wrote her letter and the Carpenter media group revised their story. Okay, they didn't support what their reporters wrote. They revised the story and didn't ask them about it. So they're making this public claim that state law prohibits legislators from using public resources for non-legislative or partisan political purposes, which is a true statement. That is what state law says. What this entire article is about is highlighting that somebody says that Vance is doing it. Okay. Well, we just looked at the statute, and the statute says that while this is true, it is also true that you can use public resources for non-legislative purposes for personal reasons if they meet criteria, meaning it's de minimis. It isn't costing the state any money. Okay. And that is what the statute says. The content of the letter, who the letter is addressed to, the purpose behind the letter, that's not addressed in the statute. So what we have right now is people that are disgruntled with what the letter said, who have filed a complaint that says, hey, we don't like what she said. And she's using government resources for non-legislative purposes. Okay. Well, there's no violation of the law. You can disagree with what she wrote, but there's no violation of law. Okay, so let's take this one step further. The Legislative Ethics Committee in the past has issued advisory opinions, AOs, on some topics that might have some bearing here. So this is advisory opinion 97-02, and you can go to akleg.gov, search ethics, and find this. Just type in AO 97-2, and it should come up. That's what I did. I put it in right there, okay? So here is from 1997, right? July 22, 1997. And scrolling through here, so the question here is pertinent. I'll find out here. Okay, you are a legislator. Okay, so it's going to cover the statement of facts. So where's the question here? Okay, the last part of your inquiry requires the committee to consider whether the ethics code permits action in support of or opposition to an initiative petition to be undertaken using governmental resources, space, supplies, paid time, staff time, a legislature. So this is not directly related to Representative Vance's issue, but it is tangentially related, okay? The committee has already found under the conclusions of Part A in this opinion that action to support or oppose an initiative petition is related to the duties of the legislature. What? So the Ethics Committee previously, back in 97, said that a legislator can support or oppose an initiative petition, and that is related to duties of the legislature, okay? Legislators are frequently called on to comment on public issues, whether or not legislation has been proposed relating to that issue, and to take stands on those issues. Similarly, legislators need to hear from their constituents and others concerning public issues. In carrying out this dialogue, a legislator may use state resources, including paid staff time, state facilities and equipment, and reimbursement for travel expenses. Legislators may attend public functions. Legislators may direct staff to do research. Legislator may make the results of research public. Communication may take any form, including individual letters, mass mailings, brochures or handouts, or any other written or electronic communication, as well as personal appearances in the media and events and gatherings, including state fairs. Okay, so what this is saying is that even though it's not directly related to the legislative duty, as in what's going on in Juneau or a particular bill, the Ethics Committee is recognizing that there are things that legislators are required to do that doesn't have anything to do with legislation. And that communicating with the public, communicating your opinions, representing the people who elected you, is something that you can do in many different forms. Okay, that's the first one. Let's look at a different one. Okay, so this is advisory opinion 2007-2. 07-2. Conflict of interest, use of government resources. You've asked if the act, so this is a legislator asking a question and the Ethics Committee is giving an opinion. You've asked if the act restricts the use of legislative letterhead to write character references, letters of recommendation, letters of congratulation, condolences, or similar form of communication that is not campaign communication, because campaign communication would be prohibited. For the purpose of discussion, the committee assumes that your questions relate to legislative letterhead by incumbent legislators. All right. So it's going to point back to its advisory opinion from 1984, which deals with statute that's been changed. Okay. The committee addressed a related question concerning the use of legislative letterhead by a legislator to endorse political candidate. and found that the endorsement on letterhead would not violate either the existing statute or then existing statute, and approved the use of legislative letterhead for political endorsements. Okay, Sarah Vance, Representative Vance, was not endorsing a political candidate. She was writing a letter to a private entity in her community. It is common practice among legislators, to use their stationery to send letters which are not, in the strictest sense, official business. Letters of recommendation, thank you notes, and personal press releases are but a few examples. Can you imagine if the Legislative Ethics Committee would have to come up with every example of what a legislator might use their stationery for? Do we want a Legislative Ethics Committee to be in that position where they are giving blessing on everything that the legislator wants to use their stationery for? It's common practice that they use their stationery for letters which are not in the strictest sense official business. This, however, is an activity which is within the parameters of the discretionary operating budget granted each legislator and does not constitute ethical conduct, specifically talking about the question posed about writing letters with letterhead, legislative letterhead, for purposes like character references, communicating with the public, that type of thing. Okay? Yes, it doesn't specifically say writing a letter to a news organization, calling them out on a biased news article. It does not say that here. You're going to have to read between the lines because you can't cover everything, right? In reaching this conclusion in 1984, we did not find that all uses of legislative letterhead of the type you have described have a legislative purpose, but we did find that they were not unethical. Okay. So, I forgot to share with you that most important thing here. This was 1997. I'm sorry, this is 2007. The other was 97. 2007. Let's scroll down here. Who are the members on this committee? Well, look, there's Dennis Skip Cook, chair. Senator Gary Stevens. Senator Con Bundy, no longer in the legislature. Representative Bob Roses, no longer in the legislature. H. Connor Thomas, current member of the board. Ann Rabinowitz, no longer on the board or on the committee. Gary Turner, no longer on the committee. Herman Walker, no longer on the committee. You got three members that issued this AO that are current members on the committee. This has already come up. The fact that this issue has not been dealt with by the ethics committee and just dismissed is causes questions in my mind. I want to show you something else here. I'm like, what is the point of having the ethics committee? Okay. Let's go to a different article. All right. Here is an article from 2025, October. Alaska Legislative Committee finds state senator violated ethics rules before the 2024 election. Okay, this is by James Brooks from the Alaska Beacon. Democratic Fairbanks Senator Scott Kawasaki violated ethics law by holding constituent events too closely to the 2024 primary. A panel of the Alaska legislature concluded in a report Friday. You know what? This wasn't just a panel of the Alaska legislature. This was the Committee on Ethics, Legislative Ethics. The report published by the Senate Subcommittee on Legislative Ethics, and they recommended no penalty. Under the Legislative Ethics Act, a legislator in a campaign cannot use state funds to print or distribute a political mass mailing if the mailing takes place during a period that begins 60 days before the primary election. Okay, so this is the news article. Let's go to the meat and potatoes here. This is why I question the validity of oh, where are you? Here it is. So this is the Select Committee on Legislative Ethics Senate Subcommittee. Determination, this is a complaint, 2401, made against Senator Scott Kawasaki, and this is the determination of probable cause, okay? This Senate Committee on Legislative Ethics, that is a mouthful, folks. I'm here to tell you, received a complaint on December 17th against Senator Kawasaki. The complaint was designated the number. The committee met on January 31st, May 30th, and September 23rd for a preliminary examination, scope of investigation, and to reach a determination regarding the complaint. Okay, so there's the alleged violations. On July 23rd, Senator Kawasaki's office distributed an official e-newsletter to constituents. This action occurred 28 days before the primary, August primary. Second alleged violation on August 1st, 19 days before the primary. A member of Senator Kawasaki's official staff was observed during state-paid business hours canvassing Fairbanks neighborhoods, handing out materials. Material says, hey, get a hold of me. I'm working hard for you. I'm Senator Scott Kawasaki. August 5th, the same staff member was observed canvassing door-to-door, distributing invitations to Senator Kawasaki's political event, campaign event. That was held within 30 days of the primary. Okay, so this is violation of state statute. Okay, I'm going to scroll down. I'll skip you all the trouble here. Let's scroll down. Committee determined that Senator Kawasaki, whether intentionally or not, violated the provisions of AS 2406030A5 of the Ethics Act by using state funds for political fundraising or campaigning. Senator Kawasaki violated the statute by printing and distributing mass mailings as noted above during a campaign period. A mass mailing is considered to be political, partisan activity. Remember that from the statute? If it is from or about a legislator who is a candidate for election or re-election to the legislature. A campaign period begins 60 days before a primary and ends the day after the general election. Recommendation. The committee determined corrective action is not warranted in this manner. The committee reminds Senator Kawasaki the Ethics Committee and staff are available to provide clarification, informal advice, or advisory opinions to prevent a similar occurrence in the future. Who are the members participating? Joyce Anderson, Deb Fancher on the committee now. H. Connor Thomas on the committee now. Dennis Skip Cook on the committee now. Carl White, not on the committee, I believe. Senator Gary Stevens, Senator Rob Yunt, both of those are on the committee. So here's a case where the Senate committee found that an actual violation of the statute warranted no corrective action. I mean, why do we have an Ethics Act? Why do we have an Ethics Act? Where's the, I'm going back to the statutes. Why do we have an Ethics Act? Legislature finds that high moral and ethical standards among public servants in the legislative branch of government are essential to assure the trust, respect, and confidence of the people of this state. A fair and open government requires that legislators and legislative employees conduct the public's business in a manner that preserves the integrity of the legislative process and avoids conflicts of interest or even appearance of conflicts of interest. Sarah Vance, Representative Vance, has not violated the statute. The statute literally spells out that using her office stationery, public office money, office equipment, if you will, using her stationery to write a letter for non-legislative purposes is an exception to the statute. The legislative committee, ethics committee in the past, years ago, has already addressed this issue and identified that legislators can communicate on a wide variety of topics with their stationery. Just so happens that a couple of years ago, Representative Vance was the chair of the House Judiciary Committee and the current chair of the Ethics Committee. I'll show you. Where are we at here? Sorry, not the current chair, Joyce Anderson. There was a very contentious confirmation process for Joyce Anderson. And it is possible that members of this committee are attempting to get back at Representative Vance. See, what's happening on social media and what's happening in the press is that the narrative is being written about in the public that Representative Vance has done something wrong. When you look at the statute and you look at the legislative advisory opinions, basically the precedent that has been set in the legislature in previous years, decades ago, prove that she's done nothing wrong. But that's not going to stop people from bringing these things forward and claiming there's something wrong in the public eye. In the past, if something gets leaked to the press from an ethics committee, chair and the members would just dismiss it because it's not supposed to be political. This is 100% political. That's behind the scenes. I can't prove that the ethics committee has got a bone to pick with Representative Vance, but the longer they take to address the issue and dismiss this like it should be dismissed, the longer they allow it to hang out there as a campaign issue, they are the ones that are guilty of turning this into a political process. What are your thoughts tonight? Let me jump up here. Tawny. Oh my, you hit a nailed it topic. I think if conflicts of interest should be declared. Yeah. I find it interesting how many potential ethics violations there could be, but are not adjudicated. Yeah. I mean, all it takes is a member of the public, you, any of us can file an ethics complaint against any legislator or legislative staff member. I am back. Thank you. Hopefully everything's working. I'm not getting any feedback that we got technical issues tonight. Let's see. So in the real world, I would legally be able to hold my financial advisor accountable for mismanagement of what I'm a shareholder of. Oh, you're talking about the PFD. They stole our remaining $685 million of the PFD. I know what you're referring to here. And yes, I understand the House Finance Committee stripped the PFD out of the budget, out of their committee substitute. I get it. I understand. It's not done yet. But yes, I understand what's happening. Lisa. The pot calling the kettle black. Ethics is something that should be reserved, like the complaints are reserved for things that are serious. What is happening to Representative Vance is frivolous. It is political, and I don't know whom filed the complaints. I have my suspicions, but I don't know. I have my suspicions. But I'm just watching what's happening and doing this research. I'm sure that I am personally, my opinion is that this is politically motivated. It is now politically motivated if it wasn't before. Arctic Prepper. Wouldn't Senator Kawasaki fall under an ethics violation for trying to push forward protection for his librarians? No, I don't think so. My initial take on it, he can file whatever bill he wants to file. It may be distasteful, but it's not violating the statute that of behavior that isn't allowed by statute. So no, I don't think so. There's all sorts of bad bills out there. Again, you can not like what somebody does. That doesn't mean that it violates the law. Craig, thanks for joining us tonight. Lived in Fairbanks for 25 years, left in 19. He was horrible then. I can't believe he's still there. Yeah, what's interesting is Senator Kawasaki's been there in the legislature for a long time. I think he was in the House back in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to check real quick for you. Got this up on the screen. Let's see. It'll tell me. You just go there and it'll tell you when. Yeah, 2007 was when he first became a representative. And then 2019, he became a senator. What else? What do you got to say? The ethics committee needs to be checked on their standards and equal treatment of all. Yeah. My understanding is that there are some legislators that are putting forward a bill this year, if it's not already been read across the floor in the House, to do some reform of the ethics committee. I haven't read it yet. I don't know the concept. I've just been told that is in the works. So we'll keep on top of that. Miguel ran for borough assemblywoman 2024, and Senator Kawasaki also illegally used a pic of me in his last, I'm gonna fix that, last outgoing mailer without my permission. Interesting. The irony is that Sarah is probably the most ethical person in Juneau. Yeah, Craig, I would agree. You can not like her position, like her political stance, but she thinks about what she does, and it takes a very straight and narrow, acts straight on the straight and narrow. Where he stated in a public event that he would not do I'm not sure. Of course, I'd never vote for Senator Kawasaki. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's not like the Homer newspaper editorials have changed. It's as Marxist as ever. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. This is the thing, is that partisan politics, we use the term partisan politics for a wide variety of things when partisan means political parties. Being in a left or a right, politically philosophical doesn't mean that you're engaging in partisan behavior, right? Because partisan is political party. Just because you're a Republican doesn't mean it's your conservative. We got lots of liberals. We got lots of Republicans that say they're Republican, but are working with the Democrats in the legislature. So partisan is not, like, we get hung up on it as it's political parties, but the days are gone where you can point to a Democrat and a Republican and say, well, because they got a D or an R, they believe a certain thing. That it just is not the case. At least with the Republicans, it's not the case. So just remember that partisanship doesn't mean, or non-partisanship doesn't mean that you don't have a political opinion or that you're somehow moderate or in the middle. That's not what it means. It just means that you're not engaging in political party activity. Lisa, can you file a complaint against the ethics committee? I don't know what good it would do to file an ethics complaint to the ethics committee about itself. I don't know where you would be going with that, but you probably could file a complaint with the legislature. That's a really good question. I'm gonna have to do some thinking about that. I would, my gut reaction, and that's what I got for you tonight. My gut reaction would be that filing a ethical complaint against the ethics committee would probably be fruitless. I don't know. Maybe they have to deal with it. I don't know. Maybe if the ethics committee had to deal with a complaint against the ethics committee, that it would have to actually investigate it. I don't know. Could it just dismiss it out of hand? Say we don't investigate ourselves? File it. I'd like to see what happens. Not that I really want to advocate tying up legislators' time with frivolous stuff, but it would be interesting. That would be interesting to see. Craig, let's name names for fun. I don't know what you're referring to. You're going to have to be more specific. Lisa, the way they go after McCabe in meetings is ridiculous. Are you referring to the ethics committee or on the floor? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Let's see here. Some of this I can't keep up with you guys. You're real quick on. Kathy G. Kathy G is not a Republican. Kathy Giesel. Yes. She has an R behind her name. And she gets to claim that. The Republican Party has no say in whether she claims to be a Republican or not. No say. Craig, you ask a personal question. What did you hate most about your time in Juneau? Well, I am not a joker. I'm kind of a serious type of guy, as you can tell. So, what I hated most about Juneau, I've described Juneau as it's like the TV show Survivor meets junior high. And we can't vote each other off the island. So we go around and around in circles with a whole lot of juvenile, unprofessional, immature drama. People that got elected, but they sometimes can't stay focused on things that are important. They can't prioritize. They'd rather deal with low-hanging fruit. Again, they're doing maybe what their constituents want if they keep getting reelected. But that's what I was most frustrated about. Like I get it. You got to work with all different people. We don't get to choose which representatives, which senators we work with. That's the public's call. But I would have expected that people who show up there want to actually show up to get things done. And that is not always the case. That is not always the case. Sometimes people are just there so that they can get reelected. You asked the question. Censure her. I think you're talking about Kathy Giesel. That is a possibility. There is a process within the Republican Party for the district that she resides in to censure her and to withhold support in future elections, both financial and endorsements and whatnot. That is a partisan process that the members of that district have open to her. Because I do not reside in her district, and if you don't reside in her district, you don't have a way to censure her. It's up to her district to do that. The state party is not going to censure her, not without her district doing it first. That's how the Republican Party works. If you care, it's a grassroots type party, and that actually, a type of censure like that has to start at the local level. We've got 9 districts in the state. I think 9 is the right count that have censured Lisa Murkowski. State needs to have a few more censure her before it becomes a state censure. But yeah, there is a path forward to communicate your displeasure with your candidate. You just, as the political party, you can't prevent them from calling themselves a Republican and running for office. That's just something you can't do. Do we really think censures work? The most, in my opinion, I think they do is prevent that person from receiving support or financial backing, which is, to some, it's not even a bother. Yeah, that's exactly the point. That's what you can do. I've said numerous times, I don't know whether I've said it on the record because in the legislature we don't talk about these things, but I've said many times that the Republican Party, kind of uniquely with regard to other organizations out there, can't control its brand. Like it exists for a purpose, you would think. Like it wants to get Republicans elected. It wants to further conservative values and policy positions at the state level, but it can't control its brand. What other organization out there can't control their brand, make decisions about membership? This political party in the state is, has a hard time controlling its brand. That's for sure. Isn't the complaint against Representative Vance frivolous when you look at what the Ethics Committee didn't do in the Senator Kawasaki complaint? This is tying up government lawfare for unnecessary reasons. Yeah, that's 100% what I hope the takeaway is from this conversation. This is frivolous. This is frivolous behavior amongst others. And I don't even know that we're ever going to know who the complainants were. What I'm told is there's a bunch of them. More than 2, less than 20, maybe. There's a bunch of them. In the past, when you saw with the legislative committee, and this is talking to others, in the past, legislative committee, ethics committee, if they saw a coordinated effort, if they saw the same letters coming in from coordinated people saying the same thing, it would have the perception that there's a political witch hunt here, and it'd get thrown out. But not today. Today, the news article that we read was making an argument that because there's a numerous complaints, somehow that makes it worse. The complaint is the same across the board, from my understanding. It's one thing that they're advocating that she violated the statute, which it's clear that previous ethics committees have found that legislators can use their letterhead for personal reasons. There's no violation here. Again, this is my opinion. I'm not on the legislative committee. We'll see what the committee comes up with. But I think the public ought to get involved. I think the public ought to communicate to those members of the legislative committee and let them know this is a political witch hunt, and it should be beneath the legislature to entertain this. Let's see here. I got to keep up. Juneau wasn't your life. It is for some. Craig, you don't have to love it to be good at it or to want to do it. And I didn't like some aspects of it, but I enjoyed service. I enjoyed being a member of the legislature and working to accomplish the goals that I thought needed to be there. I mean, you just have to talk. I mean, look at that. You see the things in the background. I didn't enjoy being in the sandbox. Like I'm literally sitting in the desert deployed, and the federal government shuts down. I'm an essential service. I'm not going to get paid, but I'm still going to go do my duty. Like, there's things that you do in life in service that you don't like. You have to tolerate it. You have to have patience. Don't get weary in well-doing. Like, it's important. nothing we do in life is 100% roses every time, right? There's always something. Kids are a blessing, but being a parent, come on. I mean, that's some stressful stuff sometimes. We should censure Murkowski on a monthly basis. You could censure her on a monthly basis. I would say if you're continuing to censure her, it probably doesn't mean what you think it means. Like once should be enough. Like if it's the maximum that you can do, censure or unelect. That's it. I'm just making a case that if you're continuing to cry wolf, then eventually everybody stops listening. It loses its potency. What's the first and foremost issue that the legislature should address first, i.e. fiscal plan or crazy bills that mean nothing? Lisa, if you know me, you know how I'm going to answer that. Like, low-hanging fruit is what the legislature does fairly well. What it doesn't do is address big issues that require a lot of thinking and risk-taking, issues that aren't going to please everyone. You can't make all people happy all the time. And our big issues in this state are not going to please everyone. That's the problem. That's in the nutshell, you've got a political problem sitting on top of a financial problem with regard to a fiscal plan, right? You see the governor put out a fiscal plan. I put out a fiscal plan a couple of years ago. What's the political solution? There's the tax. And that's all we're going to talk about. That's all anybody sees, just the negative. Okay, well, the tax doesn't exist in a plan by itself. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a plan. It'd just be a tax. So think of it holistically. Holistically, multiple moving parts, multiple big concepts. I don't know. Maybe that's too much for junior high people to think through. You got to be in high school or college or an adult in the real world before you can think through those things. I'm kidding. I'm being sarcastic and I shouldn't be, but in order for us to have reform that matters in our state government, we have to engage in bills, because that's what the legislature does. It takes up bills and has conversations about bills that change things, change statute, right? That's what it does. And we have to be able to have those conversations above a level of things that are like naming bridges and other things like that are, like I said, low-hanging fruit. You got a legislator that goes and campaigns on 7 or 8 bills that are all easy to do. They pass without much contention, and we reward them because look what you did. You passed a bunch of bills. You created a bunch of new law. That's what we want. We want to encourage. We want to encourage more laws. This is why you don't see bureaucracy change, by the way. We're going to run out of time here. Bureaucracy doesn't change. It grows, but it doesn't reform itself and reduce its scope. It always continues to grow. And the reason it does that is because if you're going to reduce what you're doing, that doesn't rate well. Like your monthly and annual performance review, if one's being done, doesn't rate well if you say, hey, I cut the budget. It rates better if you say, I serviced more people and I spent more money. I created this new program that made life better for other people. I created more laws that better life for people. That's what we're rewarding. Anyway, is that so much a critique on legislators or a critique on us as voters, right? I mean, we keep sending them back. Sorry. I got the first one here. Craig, you said you should do a show on your ideas for low-cost energy. Yeah, I should. I mean, I can't pull anything from the legislature right now to show you what's actually happening, because other than our energy conversation around the LNG pipeline and the Giesels of the universe saying that it's not going to happen for whatever reason she's got. I don't. Yeah, the legislature's not concerned about low cost energy. You realize that the I think it's the Department of Administration building down there, the big cement looking building adjacent to the Capitol building. Its lights are on 24/7. Multiple floors. I think there's like 5 or 6 floors in there. Lights remain on all the time. It's like having industry in your local area. The more electricity that the industry uses, the lower your electrical bill is. So you can think about the government buildings down there subsidizing the cost of electricity. And Juneau's got a hydroelectric dam, an alpine lake that they pull electricity from. So they've got low cost electricity already, and a government willing to subsidize the cost of electricity by keeping their lights on. Tongue in cheek, I'm sure that nobody is actually doing it for that reason, right? I mean, but that's the effect. You leave the lights on, you're burning electrons, and it ends up lowering the bill for everyone. Lisa, it's just mind blowing that they sit there and they say we just don't have enough time. Yeah, time is not the thing that's in short supply. Will is. Where there's a will to do. Think about it. 2020. What happened in 2020? We all got introduced to masks, right? 2020. We were done in 2020 in under 90 days. Budget passed. Done. See ya. We're going home. That's possible. I mean, most of the legislative leadership at that point in time was afraid that they were going to die in Juneau. And so they needed to get out of there. Literally, that's the driving factor. Like, we're all going to die. The virus is coming. Let's get out of here. And we got a budget done in 90 days. Some of this is fun. It's fun to chat with people. I wish the technology was such that we would be able to banter back and forth so I could see your face. That would be good. But then you'd have to show your face, and I might not want to see it right now. I mean, it is 8 o'clock at night, and you've had a long day. They're running on hydro, correct? Yeah. If you're talking about Juneau, they do have hydroelectric power. That's correct. Cool. Well, folks, I appreciate you joining me tonight. We're coming up on the hour. I've had fun. I hope you've found this informative. If you care, go to the website here. I'll pull this website back up here so you can see. Where is it? There is Senator Kawasaki's page, but if you go to committees, joint committees, and you click on the Legislative Ethics Committee, and here's your membership of the committee. You got 4 members: Senator Gary Stevens, Senator Yunt, Representative Galvin, and Representative McCabe, and you can communicate with them. Click on this, and it'll take you to the page contact info for those individuals, and you can send them your thoughts on what you think ought to be happening with the complaints against Vance. Let them know your thoughts. Anyway, thanks for joining me tonight. Appreciate it. I hope you have a good night. I will see you Monday, and we'll catch up on what happened this week and see what's going on, forecast for next week, and just keep on keeping on. I hope you have a good weekend. We'll see you later.